First, where is your PS? Why would you come here without a accounting officer of the ministry? Because he is where these blames fall. When the Treasury has released the funds and comes to the PS, then he gives the money to schools which does not exist, the cartel in the ministry. He should be here to explain to the Kenyans, because this is a public office. Where is this? Where is the PS of this, the Treasury? Where is the PS of the Ministry of Education? I can see the PS of TVET is here. We cannot have PS who are bigger than the CSs in this country. If you cannot support the Ministry of Education, if our kids cannot go to school, then why are we here? Now, second question. The new funding model, which is also sometimes student-centered model. We went to the HELP, we went to the university funding. They told us that this is going to change the lives of the students in the university. The DUC, the differentiated unit cost, has now been removed. But our first-year students and second-year students have not been funded. This year, they are reporting in September. The variables and the parameters used in the new funding model are defective. They are defective because people who are able can be found to be in the band 1. And those who are unable are found in band 5. When the formula used in the new funding model was brought to us, I took my case, my own son, who is in the university, and filled, and we found out that he was now in band 3. And I can pay the fees. Why would my child be put in band 3 and I'm able to pay the fees? It means that the weighted units put on these variables are defective. So as we are going now to admit the university students in first year, can you tell us whether these new funding models, you have now brought in the variables which are not defective and the parameters used are going to serve our Kenyans? Thank you.
Our CS, the main testing instrument. You need to relook at the main testing instrument here. Thank you. We have the friends of the committee who are here. Masara, Aundo. So we'll start with Honorable Masara. Pardon? Okay. Mheshimiwa needs to leave. He had actually indicated that he wants to be out before 12. So do we allow him to respond? Because we are still here with the CS Education. The members here who are not members of the Education Committee actually have specific questions that they need addressed by the CS Education. Go ahead, CS.
Thank you. Chair, I want to just deal with questions that maybe are directed to the Treasury, and I know the line minister is even more competent to deal with almost everything, including the funding, because he's the one who asks or requests for the funding. But let me just touch on some of these issues that have been raised. First, let me start with where is my PS? Chair, the invite was specifically to the CS, and I decided to accompany myself with the technical team from my ministry, and I feel I'm competent enough without my PS to address the issues that are raised. So I didn't see the need to involve my PS here because he had other assignments also to carry out. So it was not that my PS has ignored coming. He was not invited, and I equally didn't invite him. The questions raised by Honorable Mboko Mlemba, just actually one that I want to deal with. The inconsistency between the expectations and the budget. You see, Chair, I want to be very candid here. The full amount that is budgeted is released. Maybe with small discrepancy on one budget line. I need to check why we paid less, because there's a figure there of about 97%. But we release the full amount. And by the way, we release money to the Ministry for Capitation way early. I have just sampled, and I've seen for term 1, JSS we released on 20th of January, 2025. That's 50% of the budget. And I wanted to really speak to that because I think that is what is bringing a lot of contention. We released the money for the FPE also on 20th of January. The 3-day secondary school education capitation, 50%, was released in 2 tranches. So we first released part of the 50% on January 28th, and the remaining the half we released on 12th of March. So that is the only one where we released half the allocation for term 1. For term 2, we released funds on 19th of May, and yet the term started in May. So for term 2 is 30%. Yeah. Now, the inconsistency comes about because of the amount we provide is less than the expectation. That is the truth. If
yes,
you take...
CS, just clarify.
Yes.
You have released 80%. 50 plus 30.
For 2025?
Yes.
Yes.
80%.
Yes.
So 80% of 22,000 is how much?
No, that is what I want to clarify. It is 80% of the budget. The budgets cannot support the 22,000 shillings. And, Honorable Chair, you know it is Parliament that passes the budget. And you can take the figures and calculate. And I say, you see, the problem is we live a lie. Let me put it this way, and I've been around here. President Kibaki started the free primary education. Then President Uhuru, actually Kibaki never attempted free secondary education. President Uhuru came with the subsidized. It was supposed to be subsidized secondary education. Then somehow he escalated it to free. We don't have the capacity as at now to finance free primary, free secondary. And I will explain to you. If you check our debt repayment 5 years ago, it was very low. Today,
yes,
1
minute, please.
I'm
Yes.
following Honorable and CS Mbadi with my 3rd year, and he has done very well. For the first time, and press, I hope you're following, we've been told 50% has been released in full, and that 30% has been released in full. I would wish he concentrates on that without even going to the debts. If we are not funding, you have not released 80% of the 22,000 to be specific, 244.
Yeah.
So you have released 80% of what? This conversation will continue very well. We are not against anyone. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Point of order? Okay.
Yes, Madam Chair, right on it. Because the government has been lying, why can't you say 80% of 16,000 or 80% of 17,000? Because the amount that you have been providing, if you hand up what you are giving to an individual child, is how much? It is better you say that you are able to provide 17,000 and not to use 22,000 as reference point, because there is no time that you have attained that amount. So give the Kenyans the right figures.
Chair, just on the same, when the CS says that the money is not enough for expectation, what is the difference between expectation and a budget? And who is talking about this expectation? Is it not about the Kenyan government, or it is the people's expectation?
Yeah, just let me
Proceed.
put it
Yes,
into perspective. Actually, I borrowed the words of Honorable Mboko Mlemba. He's asked me specifically the inconsistency between the expectation and the budget. And that is what I'm addressing. And by the way, let us not live a lie. the budget we provide cannot give 22,000 to each child. In Kenya, it is not possible. It is less.
Chair, then allow schools to charge the difference.
Or, please, Orero,
Can I
order,
just
please.
answer? Because
Orero, order, please.
Chair,
Okay,
you know,
go ahead. Proceed, CS.
my friend Honorable Borero, you can't get an answer from me, which I don't have. Let me give you the answer. The answer is this, that because of the financial pressures in this country, we are under-providing for the per capita allocation per child in Kenya. If you take all the children in Kenya who are in high school, senior secondary school, if you take all of them and divide with our budget, which we give them, it is less than 22,000 shillings. That is what I'm saying. Yet, what we have provided is the full budgetary allocation. What I'm trying to say is that Treasury has never failed to release the money that is in the budget. And by the way, the budget is provided by National Assembly. It's not the National
Point of order,
Treasury.
Chair.
So let me
Chair.
just put it this way. Chair,
Chair.
if I'm allowed to
Chair.
answer, I will have answered the question.
Chair,
You see,
maybe I can intervene something. CPM,
can I just finish
just
this?
a minute before you finish. Chair, there's something, CS, with all due respect. You know, CPA Mbadi is very sharp in playing with figures. I'd like you to come direct, CPA Mbadi, and tell us, FCPA, sorry. This, we talked about 22,244. How much had been allocated? Because you talk about 50%, 30% of the budget, but they're not saying this budget. For the sake of the Kenyan who is watching and following, tell us the budget is 16,000, then you've given 50%. Rather than saying the budget, because somebody in Turkana does not know the budget. Somebody in Luanda, where I come from, does not know that budget, but you know the budget. Can you tell us and tell Kenyans what is the budget, which was approved by this committee, and how much of it have you given out? Thank you.
You see, like for example, the senior school is supposed to get about 54 billion. If you get 80%, you'll find about 43 billion. So, if you calculate the total budget for the year, and honorable members, I wish it is what we could address. If you look at the total budget for the year and you divide by the number of students we have in this country, instead of 22,000, we are funding up to about 16,900 shillings. So,
Chair.
So, but
Chair.
if you look at the budget, now what is it that I've said there which requires?
You know,
Order. I've just worked the figures. And unless you want me to lie to this committee, I don't want to mislead the committee. Yeah, because
Chair,
you are the
Chair.
committee which look at the budget.
Chair, let's protect the minister.
Yeah,
It's
allow
okay.
me just
No,
to
the
present the
minister-
figures. You may agree with me or you may disagree, but
Yeah.
those are the facts.
Come on, please.
Yeah.
So that we don't have.
So
that-
what I was saying as 80% is the total quantum budget that we have allocated, and so we release 50% of it. Then we release 30% of it. Then we release 20% of it. As to whether it is enough for all the children in this country, it is not. If we work with 22,000 per child for senior secondary school and the 15,000 per child for the junior secondary school, and we work with 1,400 plus per child for free primary education, you will get higher figures than what is in the budget. That is what I'm trying to say. And I gave an example of the senior school that instead of supporting 22,000, we support about 17,000. And that is why you will hear teachers, head teachers, principals saying that the government owes them money. And recently I said that you can't claim that the government owes you money when the budget that was provided for that year was disbursed in full. The thing is that we have been underfunding. And the reason I moved forward to talk about what I was saying, which Honorable Mboko was contesting. I wanted to demonstrate to you the reasons why the government is finding it difficult to finance each child at 22,000, in junior school at 15,000, and in primary at 1,400, because we have other competing needs for funds. Hence, that underfunding. The competing needs, I started with the debt repayment. The reason why probably 5 years or 7 years ago we were able to meet the requirements, apart from the fact that we adopted a free secondary education, was also because that time the debt repayment was low. Now the debt repayment is high, and it is said everywhere, putting a strain on our resources, hence impairing our ability to meet it. But we are struggling as a government to make sure that we don't unduly underfund education. So that is what I was explaining, and you can use that information that we are not funding education as it should be funded. We are facing those challenges.
Yes,
Can I move to another?
my issue, my problem
Chair.
is that in your submission, you should have acknowledged. You were telling us it's 22, it is this much. Why did you not acknowledge that you're aware? Put a rider. Both of you did not do that. You should have been honest with us and tell us, yes, it is 22, but then we'd know that you're also aware that there is a challenge. But when you continue as if it is actually 22, and if we didn't interrogate, we'd have left the room thinking it's 22. Thank you.
Wasn't that part of the budget, the 22?
Yeah.
The 22 was in the budget.
Madam Chair.
Have the floor. Then Honorable CS Education and National Treasury. Why then don't you review the policy so that we are not living a lie and we say, let's get an average for the last 3 financial years. How much is tenable? How much can we afford? So that for purposes of planning, for purposes of predictability, so that parents are advised accordingly, we know that what government can afford is 16,000 or 17,000. So that now the rest can be, other avenues, alternatives can be explored as to how to fill the gap,
Chair,
to be able to provide
Chair,
education.
just give me 1 minute. For purposes of sobriety, I think, Madam Chair, the naked truth that CS Mbadi has told us should actually have been the beginning of things. For one, CS Mbadi and the Minister for Education, and even us in Parliament, once Parliament approves the budget, then the Minister of Education does a circular to the teachers of Kenya and the minister and everyone else that the capitation for children of Kenya is no longer 22 because Parliament has passed 16,900.
Yes.
So it is now our business again, Madam Chair, that this is the dawning reality, that we now go back as members of Parliament and in the next supplementary budget, bridge the gap between 16,900 to 22,000 shillings so that you issue a circular that is proper rather than issuing a circular of 22 and it is less.
Chair, but the policy document states 22,000. That is what we approved. So, you know, getting other issues is a non-issue here, Chair.
Chair.
Because we should have been told that this policy document is not working. Yeah, simple.
Chair, I will be very sober in the last question. Almost similar to that. Did we approve 22, 244 per learner, or did we approve the 16 which you have spoken about? And then secondly, to the CS education. And kudos to Honorable Mbadi. He has indicated the money is 16. But the CS education, I want to tell you, CS Mbadi, your brother takes to schools 10,000. Already it's small. Why are you deducting money for infrastructure, 5,000? You know, I have all the notes here. Why are you deducting another 1,750? So that even from the 16, what is going to school is 10. Let me tell you this. In 2008, because I sat in the Muiria Commission, the money that went to school in 2008, if I may be very specific, was higher than what you have sent in schools last year. In 2008, what Kibaki sent to school was 10,642. In last year, you sent 10,422. It can't work.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'm Peter Masara, MP for Sona West. There was a question I raised sometimes back in February, of which part of it is what you are discussing. I've seen the response given, but there's an omission on the ECD part, which I've not seen the written submission. Chair, on the issue of capitation, which was part of my question, I think the ministry is not very honest. I've done my own research. Their main problem is the number of students in our schools and the statistics they have at the ministry are totally different. That's why they get a big problem. There are schools with a population of 1,000 and they are being funded with 400 or 500 students. So with the gap of the student which are not funded is a half, and even this half is not fully funded. That's why our schools are not fully operationalized. So my humble submission, Chair, based on what I've read concerning the response, it's not satisfactory. Maybe they didn't have the data, so they need to give the Kenyans and the Parliament, they need to guide the Parliament, because Parliament do not have figures. We get figures from the ministry. We don't have officers at the sub-county level to collect for us data of number of students who are supposed to be funded. Chair, if we don't solve this problem now, before the next financial year, schools are going to close. Reason why I'm saying this, we talk of pending bills, but the pending bill for high schools and primary school is not captured, because these schools have debts which they have not paid to their suppliers. Based on the circular they were given, they were supposed to get 22 and they are not getting. Therefore, some truth need to be told by the ministry so that we can move forward.
CS, I think, can we allow the CS to conclude his response?
So, Chair, actually, there's really little to add on to that issue. I've given the answer, the reason why there's discrepancy between what actually goes to the school vis-a-vis, the entire budget is disbursed, but the number of children are more. So it means if you take per capita or the per child allocation and you multiply by the number of children, you will get a higher figure, which is not in the budget. Secondly, policy informs the budget. And so we try as much as possible to meet. So, Chair, we try as much as possible to meet the provisions of the policy. Now, as to what we need to do to be able to fund education in this country properly, I want to just say something, and it may rattle the honorable members, but that is the truth. That these monies that we have all over the place, we could consolidate them. For example, if you give me back NGCDF, give me 40% that you have allocated to bursaries, give it back to me. It is going to be over 20 billion, 22. Give it back to me.
It is going to disappear to the ministry.
I added to capitation.
No, it will disappear to the ministry.
We are looking for solution.
Order.
We
have seen it before. We have seen it before.
Honorable Orero.
No, we know what happens because we are there.
That's why you are funding most schools.
You know, what we could do is give it back to me. Then we look for ways of making sure that we finance the children of Kenya without any school fee being paid. Just give it back to me. And I add it to the capitation. That's what I'm requesting.
Not through the ministry.
Now let me answer the other issues. I think the others were for my colleague, for Imase. Why has the funds infrastructure not reached schools? I want to say again.
Let's allow him to go through and then we'll just come back.
Let me just move quickly. I think my colleague will answer the rest, if you allow me. On why the funds have not reached the schools, I think the CS Education will address us. Funding universities, Presidential Working Party, am I aware that the committee does not recognize. I am not. Actually, if there is a problem with it, with the report, it has not been made aware to me. So the moment my...
Not a problem.
It's not the problem with the committee. What the member said, that report has never been tabled in Parliament. It has never been adopted by Parliament. Therefore, it cannot be used in any parliamentary proceeding.
Okay. So I'm not aware that there was such a problem. Now, I wanted just to pick on securitization, because there's been a lot of misreporting around the securitization, and it is not just on education. You see, we must think of innovative ways of financing our expenditure in this country. Expenditure world over of a country is funded through two methods: on budget and off budget. It is not unique to Kenya. It is everywhere. You even go to Europe, you will find it. And off budgets, you can either do a PPP model, or you can do a securitization model. Now, securitization is not alone. I have had some of us speak to it like it is alone. What happens with securitization, and as an accountant, I will speak to you with authority, it is selling a right on an asset. It is a future receivable being discounted to the present value. So what we are saying is this. For example, the sports fund. Over the years, we have had sports fund in this country. But what is it doing? Is there value for money for it? You do small, you allocate 50 million in some field, in some school somewhere, because you have influence to get that sport fund. Does it add value in our economy? Since from 1987, we have never developed any stadium in this country of international standard. Yet we have sports fund. We are receiving it every year. We are receiving it every month. What we are saying is, apart from Nyayo and Moi International Sports Center Kasarani, developed during Nyayo era, scandalized as people, as Kenyans scandalized that regime. It is the only regime or a government that developed two sports stadia, which we still have since independence. Now, we are saying that this government must develop another one, hence the Talanta Stadium. But how do we do it? Instead of using this money that we receive out of sports fund, which you need about 10 years to accumulate to do a meaningful stadium, why don't we discount it? It is discounting an asset. And I think many people, including another friend of mine who keeps talking about this thing, who is not an accountant, does not understand what a receivable is, a future asset is, how you discount it. That he can only come for tutorial from me. Now, I want to put it very clearly. It is the most innovative way of prudently using resources that otherwise would be wasted in meaningless projects that don't add value to the country. So that is securitization. I am not saying that we have already approved it. By the way, they will not, the Ministry of Education will not implement it until that their thinking is put to the National Treasury and at Attorney General for proper analysis and assessment, and as they sell that right to a special purpose vehicle. And by the way, let me add this. This is not alone. I want to repeat again. There is no risk. There is no risk to the country. We sell the risk. We sell the risk to a special purpose vehicle. And the interest rate, now listen to this, Chair, allow me to just mention this, because this has been contentious. Look, some people are telling us, why don't you just go the conventional way and borrow? Today, if you go to the market to borrow money, bonds in the international market, you will not pay less than 11-12%. Domestically, a bond, we are issuing an infrastructure bond of 15 years and 17 years next month at 12.5 and 12.9 interest rate. This specific one, because it is selling of an asset, we are only paying 7.96% interest. So those who are telling us if you really understand financials, to go and borrow money the conventional way, you are pushing us to a more expensive debt. And these are the same people who made decisions from 2014 to now and put us in expensive debts. I am telling them that that is not the route I want to take. I want to go for a cheaper loan, a cheaper funding, a cheaper facility with the same result in terms of finances, but we pay less. Now let me move quickly. I think I've addressed the issue of securitization. Whether internship is a proper employment. Now, I want to agree with the honorable member that in this financial year, and it was you, Chair, who asked, we have not provided money to convert the 20,000 to permanent and pensionable, but we have provided money for additional interns. But I mentioned when I was presenting that His Excellency the President has already pronounced himself that he would want us to recruit more teachers by January. It is my duty, as what I love calling myself, the Chancellor of the Exchequer of Kenya, who is actually working for the Cabinet and the President and the people of Kenya to try and make sure that the 5.4 billion that would be required to convert, that we get it. How I am going to get it, I will innovatively make that proposal to the National Assembly at the appropriate time. And you will approve or disapprove.
So, Chancellor, are you confirming that the current interns will be confirmed and there will be no extension of the internship?
You know, yes, actually my colleague is enriching my response here, that even last year we confirmed the interns and there was no provision initially, but we got the provision. We are going to, at 46,000 that time. This time it is 24,000 that the President has spoken about, but there's 20,000 interns. So maybe 4 would be additional out of the 20, above the 20. We will make sure that that is done. Because once the President pronounces himself, that he speaks for the government and after consultation within the government. Why not tell the student how much is available? I think I addressed that answer of that issue. Private university debts.
Yeah. The CS did not address the issue of policy vis-a-vis what you've allocated now. Because, Chair, we spoke of 22,244, which was approved for capitation. But you've indicated here that you've only allocated 16,000. Chair, we now need to know what we approved as Parliament as the 22,000 vis-a-vis what now the ministry is allocating. Because, Chair, we cannot keep on talking about policies because the CS has said, which I respect you, CS, because you know you are an expert in that area. We have said policy informs budget, and we have done the policy. It is 22,244 per student. You've never met this. Why then don't you come back to Parliament, tell us this money is not possible, tell the parents how they are going to address this issue of shortage, because schools cannot run with that 16,000. Thank you.
You know, policy, I actually answered that. I said policy informs budgets, but at times you may not actualize a policy if you don't have the money. And that is why I was saying this is a policy that we cannot discard. It has to remain. We must look for ways of funding it. That's why I was asking that you give me back.
Chair, that has been my noise, but that's why I'm still sitting here.
Yes.
So did we pass a budget of 22,244 per student, or we passed 16? That's all I need as an answer.
You know, Honorable Mboko, I don't know how you want me to address this, but I said, if you look at the budget that you passed, it cannot support 22,000.
Thank you.
So that is the short answer to that. Now, private universities' debts.
Let's allow him, first of all, to go through it, because
I think some of the questions that are coming, my colleague will... Actually, my colleague will just speak my language.
For education.
Because we are the same government.
CS continue.
So let me just finish.
CS can
then I can, respectfully, leave my colleague to address.
Proceed.
Yes. On private university debts and students dropping out, yeah, it is a problem. It is a challenge. And I will tell you that worse, as I mentioned, is that from 2016 to 2023, we educated our children in private schools almost for free. We gave a promise to private universities, which we have never. I am having a pile of those debts now. It is stress on the National Treasury and the Ministry to pay. So we are looking for ways of paying it, but these are debts that are accumulated over the years. Writing off debts. Writing off debts by universities, again, I will say, the law is clear. There will be a proposal to the National Treasury for the write-off. If it is 1% of the budget, I will approve the write-off if I'm convinced. If it is beyond that, the law says I have to take it to the cabinet for approval. Rebecca, Honorable Tonke, why is it difficult for the National Treasury to give the amount recommended? I think I've addressed that. It's difficult because we don't have the money. That is it. What is in the budget is insufficient. Labs constructed without equipment, I think my colleague will address that. Not disbursing all per student is the same question. Examination fees. Examination fees has also raised a lot of heat in the country because we left that budget line without any allocation when we proposed the budget to Parliament. Yes, you have put money there. Is it 5.9 billion? 5.9 billion. You know, we had a challenge with this. There were two issues that concerned us. First is the cost. The cost of running examination in this country, just like the cost of running elections in this country, is not tenable. And it is exaggerated. And the Ministry of Education has also acknowledged that, and they are working on it. I want to also say that we have a strong feeling, especially from the National Treasury, that it was not right to pay school examination for all the children of Kenya. It is not right. You subsidize people who cannot. You don't subsidize everybody. My child also does exams. Why should the government pay for my child examination fee? I can afford it. So if we could have a system where those who cannot, the indigents, can be paid for, because we can't run a welfare state. We don't have that capacity to run a welfare state. Look at how much we spend now on cash transfers, which we must, because those people are elderly, they're sick, and then we spend 44 billion per year. We have all these capitations and the rest. So examination, it was the view of which we presented to the cabinet as a National Treasury, that we want this matter to be looked into. But then, again, you will serve Kenyans. And as at now, we are going to pay examination fee to all the children. But it is a conversation. We need to engage in this conversation. Do we really have the capacity to be paying everything for our children? You want capitation in schools? Full. You want examination to be paid for everybody, including the child of the president, if he was going to do exam. And we want also health to be catered for, and we want security. I have heard people say, that's why are we putting so much money in security? Are we at war? We have been at war in this country with Al-Shabaab. Either we keep them there, or they come and fight us on our soil. And I want to say that we are in a place you cannot compare with some countries. We are in a place, we are neighboring volatile states, both sides, apart from Tanzania, and maybe now Uganda. All the other regions are volatile. So we need security. Without security, even this education we are talking about would collapse. If we are stuck here just one day, there is no tourism anymore. The coast economy is gone. So we must also support security. And now the last one. MP for Luanda. And now, this, let me finish this, then maybe if there's any supplementary, because I think now I have less than 5 minutes. The certificate given by National Assembly needs to be respected. And by the way, my colleague will respond. Exchequer requests to National Treasury has itemized budget. Once that money is released to the ministry, it should be spent or expended that way. In fact, the Auditor General may have problems if it is spent otherwise. I am not saying that I have evidence that it has been spent otherwise. But if that is the case, but one thing that I want to also request the National Assembly is kindly budget for education. Even if you are going to allocate to some schools, also leave some for the national government. Because again, if National Assembly appropriates everything, and we have a policy ministry here, also which has the overview of the whole country, if we can strike that balance, because I think we have not struck that balance. The executive feels, National Assembly, you should have nothing to do. National Assembly also feels that we should have everything to do with it. Why don't we strike a balance and have a system, because you are also people's representatives, where allocations are done, but also an amount is left for the line ministry, also to take care of schools that may not afford.
Chair.
Finally,
Chair, maybe on that one.
Finally, let me just finish this. Then,
Just to clarify
now,
on
finally,
Yes.
on cartels in my
Yes.
ministry.
On that one.
Yes, just allow him a rider, a brief one.
Yes. Yeah, that was my question, and I think what you observed is right. But allow me also notify you that at the point of approving the budget, not all the money was allocated. A pool of that figure was left to the line ministries. Not 1.39 billion was allocated. This committee is a committee of wise men and women. And you are aware presidential declarations are done from which that pool should cater for the same. So I can assure you, out of 1.39, a good amount of it was left in a pool which has been misappropriated or misallocated, or the cartels took charge to an extent that even presidential declarations could not be serviced. So this committee left the budget.
I'll actually leave that to my colleague, because what we do at the National Treasury, when the requests come, we disburse. It is now the line ministry that disburses the money. Finally, on the existence of cartels in my ministry, do I support my technical staff? We do. And we even offer training. We have recruited professional staff. We have them. Whether there are cartels, we will deal with those cartels. In every day working, you meet people who have different interests, apart from what brings them to the office. Whenever we identify that, we will deal with. I would guarantee you that I would not allow any cartel in my ministry who is existing with my knowledge. And if we catch or we get any cartel, we'll deal. But I don't think my PS is a cartel. You know, I've worked with my PS. You know, I'm responding to that because you see.
Yes, I would like to disregard that part. He was not here.
And by the way, you didn't even mention which one. So let me leave it there.
That one.
I have 3 PSS, so let me leave it there. But thank you, Chair. If you allow me, I would request
Chair, I wanted to get my thoughts on the funding of
Honorable Boko, I have not given you a chance to speak, but you're already on the mic. I would allow much more just a brief one.
Chair, just a fairly brief one. I like your view, your knowledge of securitization, but for a typical Kenyan, would prefer the cost of that finance to be to the very best, not beyond the level of annual inflation. That's all I'll leave to you.
Chair, I want
to go ahead and respond to that.
No, very brief also, because I want you to also get the thoughts of where the payment of examination fees came from. The years about 2000 thereabouts, many students from poor families were not doing exams, and they would fall out at class 8 CS. And when we did get the new Constitution 2010, education, when you check in the Constitution, especially basic education, is not only supposed to be free, basic, but is supposed to be compulsory. So it's from that basis of many children, of the poor, not you and me, missing exams and dropping out of school, that policy came in force. So as you retire back to your office, think of the poor people who are not able to pay when we remove it, not ourselves who are able to pay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa. Honorable Elacha, a brief one, kindly.
Thank you, Chair. Mine is just to request, and I'm hoping also CS Mbadi will help the Ministry in line of education, that you see all this we are talking, we have no data of these learnings. We are just saying 3 million. Can we have every child with a name so that we know this data properly? And that is the day we'll start knowing how much this ministry needs.
That will be for
I think the question by Honorable Lechi, the minister here is very able. I had him mention it. But now on the issue, I'm not saying we are stopping paying examination fees. We were trying to reevaluate and pay for only those who need to be paid for. But as it is today, we are going to pay again examination fee for everyone. But there's that conversation, and that will be part of the conversation. On Honorable Undo, I agree it comes from within. That comes to securitization. It's a global thing. In fact, we don't want to crowd out our local. Most of the securitization, we are very clear. Not more than 20% should come from the local market. 80% outside. Because if we crowd out the private sector here by borrowing locally, too much is very fluid. In this country, inflation even reached 9.6. Now, it could be low by tomorrow. So you want to allow this to the market dynamics and just negotiate, because we also negotiate these prices. We have the leader, Rangers, who does due diligence, and we get people, the reputable firms. We use Citigroup, we use Standard, we use TDB to do some of these arrangements. So it is professionally done. And Honorable Wondo,